All right, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Tuesday was a difficult day for me. I consider Daryl Morey a friend, and he did a lot of positive things for our franchise. We made the playoffs 5 of 6 years, including the conference semifinals 4 of those seasons. Obviously, we drafted Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, great players, core players. And over the next 7 years, we have 7 first-round draft picks and 12 second-round picks. I wish Daryl and his family the best. As we move forward, Bob Myers will oversee basketball and run the process to identify a new day-to-day leader. Bob is someone I've known for a long time. We have a great relationship. I've had the privilege of working with him over the last few years as President of HBSE Sports. His credentials speak for themselves: 4 NBA championships, 2 NBA Executive of the Year awards, and he's universally respected across the sports industry. I very much look forward to Bob, the new day-to-day head of basketball operations, whoever that is, and Nick Nurse, to be leading our front office and coaching staff next year. To our fans, I want you to know no one's more frustrated than me that we haven't achieved our goals. I care deeply for the city and the team. I acknowledge how disappointing it is that we have not made it past the second round of the playoffs. We owe it to you and the city to be better. Thank you deeply for your support. Now, I'll turn it over to Bob.
Well, I don't know many of you, but I hope to get to know you. Thank you for being here today, and thank you, Josh. I also want to share my gratitude for Daryl. I've known him for quite some time, a great respect for him, and wish him nothing but the best. I also want to say I thank you for this opportunity to manage this process, to partner with new leadership. I take it very seriously. This city is a passionate fan base. This is a blue blood organization. And so to get put in this position is a privilege. It's an honor. I view myself as a steward to the fan base, and I take that very seriously. I wouldn't have come here if I didn't think Josh and David Blitzer and HBSE was not serious about winning and weren't committed to winning. Again, I view these things as great challenges. These are great responsibilities to be in these chairs, but also not easy. And I know we have challenges ahead. I spent yesterday with the existing members of the basketball front office in Chicago. Elton Brand is there today with the group. We've got a lot of work to do. And we know that. With the 22nd pick in the draft, time to get to work. We're less than 48 hours, though, away from this change, so I have some work to do, and I look forward to doing that. And again, what I would say is when you look at the NBA, there's a few places that stand out as far as the history of the organization, the care of a city, and this is certainly one of them, and I'm excited to kind of move forward in this role. After that, questions.
Gina Mizell from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Bob, can you, right here,
Oh,
sorry. Can you sort of detail just sort of what qualities you are most looking for as you begin this search, what you're going to prioritize, and what you feel like are what this organization needs in that type of leader at this point in time?
Gina?
Yes.
I'm a big believer in character and leadership, and I'm looking for a person that embodies those things. But there's many characteristics under that I believe kind of qualified in making a modern GM a success. There's front-facing responsibilities. There's responsibilities of managing star players. There's responsibilities of managing up to ownership. There's contract negotiations. There's draft process. There's evaluating analytics. There's medical staff. You go down the line, and these jobs have an enormity to them. So I'm looking to find someone that can check as many of those boxes as possible, but also raise their hand and say, you know what, I'm actually not good in this space. I'm going to need some support. Because the misnomer about these jobs is I had some success in my previous job, but it wasn't me by myself. There are teams of people that make a team and an organization successful. So making sure we have the right person to lead them, but also the right people underneath them, which is important. And the person that is going to get this job, like I said, I hope they check all those. They won't. It doesn't exist. How can we support them in roles that they don't have?
Bob Cooney from On Patterson. What are some of the biggest obstacles that you see for this organization right now going into next year, immediately, and then some of the things that are beneficial to the next president of basketball operations for this organization?
What was your name you said?
Bob Cooney.
Okay, Bob. Nice to meet you. I think, look, there'll be one happy team at the end of this season. Just one. There'll be 29 teams that didn't get the job done. We're one of them. We're one of the 29 that didn't win the championship this year. Our season's over. And so you have to acknowledge the why of that and how did we get here, right? So there's some good moments. There's some good things about this organization. And there's some things we need to get better at. And some of those things, Bob, we can fix internally, and some of them we can't. And so we have to be honest about who we are and why we came up short. Because you only do these jobs, I only take these jobs to win a championship. I think players, if they're being honest, only play to win a championship. I didn't hear any players say, well, we had a great season and this is exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to get swept in the second round. Nobody's saying that. He's not saying that. So why did it happen and what can we do? And again, that involves an intense evaluation process, getting to know the players, getting to know the coaches, getting to know what works better, what can we change. And sometimes those solutions are ours to control, and sometimes they're not. Having done this job previously, sometimes I could get the team better internally, and sometimes I couldn't. And then you have to make changes externally. So that's our job. I think there are some positives, and there's some things that are challenges that we have to work through. But all of it has to be evaluated, starting with now we've got a 22nd pick in the draft. We've got to get that right. And then there's free agency. And then there's an off-season program. And all those things matter to get us to where we want to go.
Bob,
Okay, sorry.
Tony Jones from The Athletic. One of the adages, an adage in the NBA is that it's doable to go from bad to good, but it's very, very difficult to go from good to championship contender. You guys have gone from bad to good. You've accomplished that. What is it going to take for you guys to go from, second round knockout to championship contender, and why haven't you guys done it?
Tony, I believe that adage. Because when you're bad, you can try anything, and if it doesn't work, you're still bad. But if you're good, you have to risk something to go to great. So that's why it is harder to go from good to great, because you risk something. You risk making a mistake and falling back to bad. When you're good, you're scared to do that, or you're more resistant because you say, if it doesn't work, we're going to be bad. When you're bad, if it doesn't work, we're still bad. But yes, that is the nuance and challenge of any team, right? So there's some teams, there's a lot of teams. We made it to the Elite Eight, you might say. Well, you don't get really celebrated for that in this business, nor do I believe should you. So then you say, what do we need to do to get to great? I've actually been lucky enough to see what great looks like, but that's not easy, right? It's not easy. So it's a hard look at everything. It's a hard look at whoever we hire, and we'll place it on them. It's a hard look at what I've experienced and what I know that makes a championship team. But it's also a question to our players. Do you want to get uncomfortable? Because it takes a great level of uncomfortability to win a championship. Attention. Do we have that? Do you want that? Do we want that? Do we want to take that responsibility on? Are we satisfied? I know he's not. And our players better not be satisfied with 4 to 6 second round playoffs. Yeah, yes, it's not easy to make the playoffs. But nobody plays this game to make the playoffs. In fact, 16 teams make the playoffs, more than half the league. That's not anybody's goal. The goal is to win a championship. So I say these things, but I also want to say clearly how hard it actually is and how hard it will be. There is no wave a wand, me sit up here at a press conference and talk for 10 seconds and that's the answer to fixing everything and we're off. This requires a ton of work. And so whoever we bring into this process, including myself, including our staff, our players, has to be committed to that in a very big way. And that means sacrificing time and energy and putting everything you have into this. And we're going to demand that. I'm going to demand that of whoever we hire. I'm going to do that myself because I just don't know how to not do it. But we need our players to want that too. And that's our challenge to put on them.
Bob, this is David Murphy from the Philadelphia Inquirer. In this process, who will be setting the philosophy, big picture wise? Are you going into the search saying, this is what we think this roster can become? For instance, early in Steph Curry's career, there was questions about whether to trade him or not. There's a person saying, no, this guy is going to be a guy that we build around, and a championship roster will be developed around him. Are you looking for someone who will answer that question themselves, or is that something that you're going into it kind of having looked at this roster, knowing what general direction it needs to go in?
David, I'm a big believer in whatever the best answer is. Whoever comes up with that is the best answer. I don't care who says it. but it requires a lot of debate, a lot of conversation. I'll tell you what I'm looking for in a leader: somebody that's committed to getting it done, to getting us there, and is aligned with myself, is aligned with Josh, is aligned with our expectations, our work ethic, our commitment, our competitiveness. If they want to make a big statement about what we need to do, I'll listen to that. I asked the staff last night that exists, what are you guys going to do? What do you think? A lot of different answers. And they said, what do you think? I said, I don't know the answer, but we're going to figure out the answer. As far as like one specific thing, I never think, like I said, having been fortunate enough to see how you win, I love Steph Curry. I love him. He got one Finals MVP. It's just crazy. It's not enough, but it's not one person that wins championships. It's a team that wins, and he would say that too. And he doesn't care. He's got 4 NBA championships. That's what matters. It's not about anything else. It's about the team, and we want as many people that. I know that nature is to look at one person. It's never one person. It's a team of people. Whoever wins it this year, it won't be one guy. It'll be a team of people, and we got to figure out what team we can put together that has an opportunity to do that.
To follow up on that, you have a roster right now that has 2 young guys who you mentioned who clearly are potential centerpieces, and then you have 2 older kind of aging veterans who are also among the highest paid players in the league. There's different ways to approach that. Do we build for the future around the 2 guys? Do we try to win next year, thinking that we can get more out of the 2 old guys? That's kind of the philosophy that
Yeah, sure.
I'm referring to.
And that is, David, that is the question. And if I had the answer to that question, I'd actually just do it. I don't even need to tell you. I just do it, or I look forward to partnering with leadership to get that answer. But you're asking the right question. But that's a question I think everybody's asking, right? Like, how do you not? And it's not to criticize an older player or praise a younger player. It's about how do we get past the second round? How do we get further? But that's what makes the job hard. That's what makes it gratifying, is figuring. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. It's very hard to build these things and build them in the right way.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Bob. Crystal Ridge, CBS, Philadelphia. Bob, you mentioned that one of the responsibilities and things that you're looking for is someone who can manage star players. You also said you want them to be in alignment with Josh and yourself, which is understandable. And you just touched on this, but what is the dedication, if you will, to see the fulfillment of Joel Embiid and Paul George's contracts, and how much in alignment does the new president of basketball operations have to be with you guys on that? How big of a role does that play in who you select?
Again, not having interviewed anybody, that's a good question that I will ask them. How do you feel about our roster, right? And I imagine I'll get different answers from different candidates, and there'll be one answer or maybe a few that stand out and say, that's really interesting, I didn't think about it that way. Or I might say, what about this? Or what do you think we can do here? What do you view from the outside? Sometimes when you talk to candidates or people outside your organization, you get a different answer. When you talk to people inside, there's a bias inside a building as far as outside. Somebody say, actually, I think this can work, or I really like this guy. Or what if you played this way? Or what if you partnered these 2 guys? Again, I don't look at it though, and I don't want to speak for Josh, is whoever we hire, I'm not going to base it on the first thing they do, the first player. If we get it right, this person will be here for a long, long time and make many decisions, and hopefully many of the right decisions. But as far as near term, yeah, those are questions. I'll maybe borrow your question. Just ask that question. How do you think this can work? And then I might say, what about this? Josh might say, what about that? The people that have been in the building might say, I think this. I'm a big believer in a group. I didn't win 4 championships. I didn't do that. Our group did that. People did that. And I like that idea. Working in sports is the best thing because you're on a team. And so I look forward to building out someone that can lead that team and work with myself and certainly work with Josh.
And if I could just take you back to the trade deadline, Daryl Morey admitted that he wanted to use the picks that he got for Jared McCain to get a player that could help them this year. It obviously didn't happen. He also said that they traded high for Jared McCain. In retrospect, what is your evaluation of that situation and his, if you will, emotional intelligence of how he came across when he said that?
Well, I'm not going to – I like Daryl. I'm not going to disparage Daryl here today. I think he did a fine job, and I think he's a good person. And what I will say to your question, and I understand why you asked it, is that what I will tell you is that was a few months ago. Right now we have the 22nd pick. Our job is to get that right. We have 3 second-round picks from it. I know you're not criticizing or just asking a question. We should be graded on the ultimate result of transactions like that. But I understand I made draft picks where we got an F right away 10 minutes after the draft, F. And I was like, how do they know it's an F? I mean, we guys didn't even played. But your job and everybody's job is to react. I totally understand that. Our job is to make a trade. There'll be a reaction. It'll be positive or negative, but that trade isn't done. And our job is to make sure that on our end of the trade, we do a good job with drafting the best player at 22.
Bob, hi, Adam Aronson from Philly Voice. Can you talk about what you envision your role here being with the Sixers specifically after this hire is made? Josh mentioned the idea of you and Nick and this hire working together and how that differs from what it has been since you started working with HBSE.
Yeah, I view taking the next few weeks, not sure how long it'll be, to identify a day-to-day leader that'll have a lot of authority here, which they should. What they're going to get and our fans are going to get is them plus me. I won't be on the day-to-day level, but on the high-level decision-making, which is being here at the draft, being here leading up to the trade deadline, being available for free agency discussions, free agency meetings, things like that. I'm going to be involved at that level. And I can tell you that I imagine, and this isn't, not saying this lightly, I'll be communicating with that person daily, if not 5 out of 7 days a week. You know why? And I don't view that as a job because I want to. I want to hire somebody that I can work with. I want to hire somebody that Josh can work with. And most importantly, I want to win. And I think that I have had some experience in this space. And if I have something to say, it's harder for me not to say it than say it. But that'll be my role, and obviously continuing to work with Josh on all this very high-level stuff. But I'm looking forward to kind of that role. And, you know, it's the best part about working in sports is the competition. If you like competition, it's a great space to live in. But you got to deal with some pain. You got to deal with some loss. But when you win, it's all worth it. But that would be how I would characterize it. We got to do a question for Josh.
That's okay. It's getting weird up here.
All right, I got one for you.
Come on.
It's all good.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
You've been through a lot with Joel Embiid. Unfortunately, there's uncertainty with him a lot of times in the playoffs with some unfortunate injuries. Do you feel he can be the centerpiece of a team that gets you over the hump to be a championship team with what he's gone through?
Yeah, look, I mean, all the good ones. Look, I think Joel, like we win as a team, we lose as a team. Bob said it's not one player. I think putting all the focus on one player is the wrong place to be. I think that he's an important player on our roster, and you know, he's a warrior, and you know, he's also, you know, some of the things that you said are also true. So I think we're gonna we're looking forward to welcoming him back on our team.
Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers. Bob, just with the draft coming up, and it is so close, and as you mentioned, they're already kind of, you know, doing a lot of the prep. Do you want to get this person in place before the draft, or is that something where if it doesn't happen, you're comfortable going with the scouting that's already been done and your kind of, you know, history as an executive?
Yeah, I think, Paul, I'd like to have someone. I hope to have someone. But if it hasn't happened, that's okay too. But the goal would be to have someone in place for the draft, to get acclimated with the new group. But by the way, the group is working now. And whoever we hire, not sure who that will be, will likely possibly already be evaluating the draft from where they're coming from. So that's a benefit in some ways. But yeah, I'd like to, and I hope to, but it'll be as much time as required to get the best person. Because again, sure, have someone by the draft, but the goal would be to have someone that's the right person for a long amount of time after that.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Josh. Dave Uram from WIP, KYW Radio. Josh, you talked about a lot of frustration, disappointment in your opening statement and your statement from the other day, understanding the fans' frustration and warranted frustration. I'm curious, taking you back to the end of the series, how did it feel for you sitting in that arena with all the Knicks fans that took over the building?
Yeah, so obviously I didn't like it. I mean, it's our home court. I mean, we did everything we could, including buying tickets to keep the fans out. We geo-fenced, and look, it's on us. I mean, we were, you know, the fans supported us, And let's face it, we got swept. And so for that last game, you know, there were some Knicks fans in the arena, and so our job is to, you know, is to come back and win that series, right, next year. And so I think that I didn't like it, but you know, it gives me more focus and more orientation, just sort of getting back to work and, you know, bringing in. I mean, again, like we have a 4-time NBA champion here, who's, you know, going to be overseeing basketball ops, and that's a big deal. And so there's a recognition that, that, hey, you know, if we want to be, you know, this city's not going to be satisfied, and we're not going to be satisfied unless we win an NBA championship. That's hard. There's 29 teams that want to, there's 30 teams that want to do it. There's 29 other teams. They're all smart, and we need to be smarter. And so that's what this is about. It's about doing everything we can to move to the next level.
Hi. Kai Carlin of Sixers Wire. Bob or Josh even, I guess, how would you kind of evaluate what Nick Nurse has done through these 3 years? And I'm curious, is he going to have a say in the search at all?
Yeah, look, I think Nick the team played hard for Nick. And, you know, there were a lot of things that happened, I think we all saw, where there were various rosters that were available and rosters that weren't available. We were up-tempo, and then we slowed it down. And he handled all that, and even in the playoffs, the team played hard. And so I think, and Nick's a championship coach. You know, he's won an NBA title. So I think he's earned the right to be here. He's our coach, you know, and moving forward into next season. And so in terms of the search, I mean, I'll leave that to you. But I think generally, certainly, you know, you talk to your coach, you listen to what they want, but ultimately, his job is not to find the next GM or president of basketball. It's our job.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I saw Nick yesterday in Chicago. He's got enough on his plate. And like Josh said, it is our job and our responsibility to locate this person. And it's not to exclude Nick, but again, he's got enough responsibility. And this is our focus. But look, I imagine somebody that we hire will be a great partner for Nick, and that's what we have to promise him.
Bob, Austin Krell on SI. I mean, you already said earlier that you'll have the new candidate evaluate the roster, but you did watch a lot of basketball this year with this team. What is your evaluation of Joel and Paul and their futures, their current states in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I watched the team just like I'm sure you watched the team. The thing I liked was that we got to see, and it's maybe not completely, but we got to see a healthy team, right? We got to see at least in the playoffs for the most part, Joel came back. And when you're healthy in the playoffs, the best part is you don't have any excuses about why you lost. You lost. I didn't like ever going into the playoffs with, well, so-and-so was hurt, and if he had been healthy, we would have. Those hypotheticals aren't helpful. So what is helpful is we played a team, we were mostly healthy, we lost. Okay, let's just be honest about that. Let's acknowledge that. After that, to your question, that's going to be the next leading up to the draft. What do we need to draft? What are we missing? What do we not have? And then the question is going to be, with what we have, how do we get better with what we have? And the final question is going to be, we got mid-level exception. What do we do with that? But back to the other point, I want to partner with somebody that I can have those discussions with in a meaningful way, and I'm going to have those discussions with potential candidates and ask them that question. I don't have that answer today, but our job is to have that answer. It was fascinating to hear from the current staff that I saw yesterday in Chicago what was said at the exit interviews. I find that very impactful. I'm not going to tell you. That's not fair. All of it matters. All these conversations, all the things you learn about an organization when the game is over and you go in the locker room and you talk to the players, you talk to the coach, you talk to the training staff. What happened this season? And until we get all of that, I'm not going to say we've got the answers to that question, but I do know this. We have to get better. We have to find a way to get better.
Josh, to go back over here, to go back to the Jared McCain thing, outside of the granular transaction level one-loss opinions, from a perspective of high-level organization decision making, that's a potentially impactful move. For the future of your organization, trading away a guy you drafted in the first round and had shown a lot his rookie year. And the decision was made by a guy who then 3 months later, you're moving on from and kind of reevaluating the direction of the organization. Was that Daryl's move unilaterally? Were you and Bob kind of involved in okaying that? And if not, how does that make sense if there was a chance that a move like this would happen and the next guy would have to deal with the aftermath?
Yeah, so the way these things work generally with something like that is the front office makes a recommendation, and then ownership, which included Bob at that point, we okayed it. So I think we were involved in it. It was part of a bigger plan. It's not. I wouldn't say that. As Bob said, we don't know the outcome of that trade right now. We are sitting here with the 22nd pick, but I understand what you're saying, and I understand the question. And I heard, and obviously I understand, the view of it here. So I think that, right now we're focused on, what do we do with all the assets we got in that trade, and we'll know whether that trade was a good trade or not a good trade, over the next year or two. And but yes, that's the way it works.
For Josh, Matt DeGeorge from the Delco Times, Daryl had said at the trade deadline that the position of ownership was that you'd be willing to go over the luxury tax if the right situation presented itself. What's your view of that? Is that still something that ownership is willing to do in the right situations moving forward? Is staying under the tax line a priority? How do you view that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question because there's been a lot of chatter, and it gives me a chance to answer it directly. The front office absolutely has the green light to go into the luxury tax. In fact, we've been in and out of the luxury tax, and so it's not an issue. I mean, it's just not an issue. We're building an arena here. I can tell you that the amount of dollars you spend on that versus the luxury tax, it's magnitudes more. We built this facility. We've signed a number of max deals, so there's no issue with the luxury tax. And so I'm glad that you asked.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add to that. I'm not. Don't know a lot of you, but I just can't imagine a day where if I said to Josh or leadership said to Josh, this deal makes us a contender, but you have to go into the tax. If he says no, which he won't, I wouldn't work for somebody like that. Because look, to be honest, if you look at the history of teams that have won a championship, I was one of them. We were in the tax. It'd be great if you can win a championship by not being in the tax. Very hard to do, but it has to make sense. And so I know, and again, I'm not worried about that part of the job because if that comes up, I know what the answer will be.
Bob, Zach Chomalilum, Metro Philadelphia. Just curious, Elton, you mentioned earlier that Elton is in Chicago. Just about curious about his role moving forward, and if he should have interest in the position, would he be among the considered candidates?
Yeah, I'm going to take, since we just, like I said, not even 48 hours. I'm going to talk to Elton, get his thoughts on things. I've spoken to him. Like I said, he's in Chicago now with the group. Known Elton a long time, figure out what we think is best, but we haven't gotten to that level of detail with any of that yet.
Gotcha. Well, then on to the draft. Just curious about your general overall philosophy. The team has a number of needs regardless which timeline, or if you go two timelines. Your personal preference in terms of drafting best player available versus going for a targeted need?
Yeah, look, I think the philosophy will be what I want. I think this group's done a pretty good job drafting, to be honest. I don't want to come in and run over anybody. This existing group, including Daryl, has drafted some good players. Maxey, VJ, good examples of very successful players that were picked. So I'm not an expert in that. I'll give my opinion. I want to meet with the group, hear what they say. Each year is a little bit different as to what you're looking for. See who might be available at that pick, and partner with new leadership and see what their philosophies are on the whole thing. But look, obviously you want somebody you can build on. And Maxey's the ultimate success story in that range. I mean, can't expect that, but at the same time, getting a quality player you can build with.
Hey, Bob, over here. Kyle Newbeck from PHLY. What level of autonomy is the person you're going to hire going to have? Because this organization has had issues in the past where the power structure is more opaque than it appears on the outside, and with they're inheriting a coach and potentially people internally. How do you avoid problems with that where there's a clear top-down vision for everything?
Yeah, I think, Kyle, people, right? You need good people. You need good people that are in harmony. So there is no acrimony. You can debate, healthy debate, but I actually, in my previous job, we had a lot of people in the room commenting on what we should do, what we shouldn't do. But ultimately, we came together, and I expect a lot of autonomy of this person. If I do a good job, a tremendous amount of autonomy, because that's what you want. Hire somebody, let them do their job. But at the highest level, you certainly give your opinion, you weigh in. When you get into this, I mean, look, a healthy organization, you're not in a room where people are storming out and back channeling and saying, I wouldn't have done that, I would have done this. So hiring a decent person that I can collaborate with, and by the way, it's not your problem. I'm not going to hire somebody that I don't think can be malleable, that can be collaborative, that can be thoughtful, that can take direction, that can be humble enough to say, you know what, that time I didn't get it right. Or, you know what, I really believe in this. You have to give me the strength to make this decision. All those things are part of hiring the right person. And as to what happened in the past, obviously I wasn't here, but I believe we're going to get a very functioning, high-functioning, quality front office with this hire. But, yeah.
Josh, I have a question for you too. I think a lot of criticism recently has been turned toward you, specifically fan frustration-wise. There have been some fans who've been thrown out of games recently for yelling things like "sell the team." I guess what would you say to those people? Because I think some of that is about just the lack of success or lack of championship success, but also maybe some of the off-court things that have not been addressed by you.
Yeah, look, again, I mean, I think I'm very focused on, setting up the team and the club to push through the second round and go to the NBA championship and achieve our goals. And, I care deeply for the team. No one's more frustrated than I am. I understand people's frustration. And, this is, having, going out and getting, someone as talented as Bob to kind of, help Philly achieve its goals. This is the next step in our evolution. And so, all I can tell you is that I'm sweating it really hard. I'm sweating it just as hard or harder as any of the fans. But that's what I'm focused on. And, I understand people's frustration.
Final question for the afternoon, Derek. Derek Bodner, also of PHLY. This is for Bob. With some of the changes in the most recent CBA and some of the restrictions that come after exceeding aprons, is it still tenable to have 3 max players, especially on 35% maxes, and still have the depth needed to contend for a title?
Well, we didn't get it done this year with 3 guys, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. I don't totally. I think I know where you're going, and I think it's a smart question. In that, what's the modern roster supposed to look like with the second apron, really, which is oftentimes operates as kind of a hard cap. Depth may. The truth is, depth may be more important than it's ever been. Maybe that's the pace of play. Maybe that's what we require of our players more. Not to say that this model doesn't work, but we have to look at what happened this year and be honest about it and see if we got to be honest about, can this model work, right? And that's really the question. And also understanding that depth is key, and you only have a certain amount of resources to spend. So that's something, that's all part of the questions. It's all part of what we need to figure out going forward.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.